the different blocks together with an AND operator. And here there is a speed limit in the design, because you have to propagate, see if this block is true and this block is true, you have to have an operator here, and if you have and this block is true, you ripple through all these different blocks. But that's the largest thing I could think of was matching it on an IPv6 address, and we have time enough to do that. It's basically to AND operations. And there's also a possibility to go smaller than 16 bits, and that's been done by using a bit mask. I'm not going into all these details. But that's too much on 1 bit or 2 bits or 3 bits. So basically, the software does this. It takes the input and changes it into 3, in this case, 3 registers to match the data. And I can demo this, I hope. So the demonstration is to send about 50 million frames. That's what I don't want to see, and then 1 frame I want to see. And then we go back to the other screen. Please? This is a hardware traffic generator. The question was, what is this software? And this is the interface of a hardware traffic generator that generates the traffic. So I'm going to switch off these streams and switch on these streams. So what you see here now is this interface here generates 14.8 million frames a second. And that's being received here. And I only look at one stream. So the other side is sending 1,000 frames a second, and this other guy is receiving 1,000 frames a second. So let's look at the output of this monitor machine. This is the output of the counters of the monitor box I was just describing. And you see here on channel 0 about a packet weight of 40 million frames a second. It's being wound down to 40 million. And the match packets are actually 0. And that's because I still have this filter on of the other demo in. So let's set a filter for seeing the frames from that are not from the MAC address where I sent this 50 million frames from. And by the way, you see here the internal representations of these different steps I tried to explain in my slides. So let's see what we get in here. That's only one. So we see here now coming in. So after the filter on this Ethernet interface, the monitor box is representing. We see frames coming in by about 1 a second. Look at the timing here. So what we're doing is we're sending 50 million frames, about 50 million frames. 1 frame we want to see, and then again another 50 million frames, with almost 50 million frames a second. And this PC can easily process this 1 frame per second, of course. Now to demonstrate that I'm not faking, let's remove this thing here. So now you should see here all the frames coming down. Of course, this PC cannot process this 50 million frames a second, but you can count them by the hardware. So the match frames here are 40 million frames a second. The PC cannot process that. Even the PCIX interface to the PCIX bus cannot process that. It processes about 689,000 frames a second that are being copied to the PC. Any questions about this? I see there a hand. In the back there was a hand. Okay.
Thanks. This is impressive work, thank you. My question is more general. It's how do you use this in a live setup? Because I imagine if something goes wrong here, the box crashes and you won't have the light replication from the source to the input to the output. Are there any ideas of making this, using a really passive monitor? Because this is passive as you only get some of the traffic, but it still goes through the box, right?
Yes. Of course, you can use an optical tap to use only the input, then it copies things to the output, but well, hey, then it goes nowhere. So if you think that the electronics in between the path are a problem, then you can use, of course, you can use a passive tap there, if needed. The reason for not doing this entirely passive is the following. When we started with this, we had lines that were on the edge of what they could do optically. And if you put an optical tap in, you take some of the energy out of the fiber. And back then, there were situations where that could be harmful. So that's the reason to look for a repeater. You have then the possibility to do that, and you still have the possibility to do everything passive. On top of that, of course, you need to put this box into some line. And you need to take the line apart and connect it to the box. That is also harmful, but because we have these optical switches that really switch fast light in to another light out port, we can do that within about 20 milliseconds. So there's about 20 milliseconds of frame loss while putting the box in. Actually, it is a bit longer because some interfaces need to fire up or something, or MAC addresses might be learned. But generally, that's below a second of getting the box in a line. And that's more or less acceptable. If you count it with this numbers of frames per second, it's still bloodbath, but yeah, nothing to be done about that. Can't imagine that I was that clear. I see a hand here.
Test. How do you interface the PHY with the FPGA? Is it SerDes or?
That's a technical question. On the front-end FPGA, it's a Xilinx front-end FPGA, and the firm Xilinx makes blocks for that. they call Rocket I/O, and these are ZOE interfaces. So you can buy, or actually they don't charge any money for them. So there's a block of Verilog code, of description, hardware description, you put into your FPGA. And actually, lots of what you see here was figured out by Force 10 or Meta Networks before. And they actually bought this from Xilinx, this ZOE interface. There are 2 ZOE blocks in that, and that interface directly with this VICE, with this XAMVix XPEX. And there's another thing on that, is that between the 2 blocks there are 4 2.5 gig paths, and there is some hardware needed, some hardware resources in the FPGA to deskew these paths, because some path takes longer than the other. But that's about the entire latency you get into the repeater.
Hello. Yeah. You told us about frame rate of 1 million here.
Sorry.
You told us that you were able to dump 1 million packets per second using standard libpcap, but do you had to do any tuning, like interface polling or special libpcap?
Can you repeat your question or rephrase it? I don't understand.
Did you had to do some tuning on your Linux box to be able to capture 1 million packets per second?
No, it was one of the design goals to do not really special things on the software here. So normally this 699 now here, about 700,000 frames a second. If you have to analyze 700,000 frames a second, you're already dead, because that is such an amount of data to see. So you really want to set your hardware filter to something like 1 frame a second, or even 1 frame a day or so, if you're really behind some weird thing in your network. That's where the box was designed for. And for that low data rates, you don't have to tune anything on the Linux part. So. Any other question? Then I guess, oh, yeah.
Have you thought about equipping your card with some memory so that you can define an, say, external trigger and capture an amount of data in, around this trigger?
It's one of the wishes. The card is equipped with SRAM, which we can use to online wait to store frames in. I just don't use it yet to do that. That's all. But it's one of the wishes that are on this for this product. But I'm working for a internet exchange which should ship bits. Yeah, we shift bits between different parties. That's my main job, and we needed this, and we with this whole thing with the POS frames, it was really, really useful to have it. But once the problem is solved, I have to do other things as well. So I'm not 100% of the time developing this product. We can use a student for that, actually. Okay, then I guess we're done. So.